안녕하세요. 나주마쌤입니다. 이번 영상은 영어권 문화 수업을 듣는 인천의 한 고등학교 학생들의 미국의 자동차 문화와 관련된 질문에 원어민 친구들이 답하는 영상입니다. 이번에 새로운 게스트를 모셨는데요. 전직 과학 선생님이자 현재는 피아노를 가르치고 있는 리사와 그래픽 디자이너이자 사업주인 피터랍니다. 미국 문화 자체가 샐러드 볼처럼 다양성을 가지고 있기에 원어민 친구들의 답은 참고로만 알아두시길 바래요. 자, 그럼 시작해 볼까요?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa.
Hi, my name is Peter.
Yes, overall, yes. Students need to take a course with an instructor, and they need to get a permit that allows them to drive with an adult. Then they need to take a driver's test and a written test to get their licenses. But that's usually, I think they have to be 16. So, yeah, I think that's true. And especially young men have more accidents. I don't know what the age range is, and I don't want to cast bad words to the young men who drive.
So that is why their auto insurance is very expensive, right?
Yes. That is why, because they have more tendencies to get in accidents. Back when I was in high school, which was a long time ago, we had driver's ed at school. We had machines that you would actually practice driving in the high school.
Oh.
And they didn't move. They were called simulators, but you would sit there and each of us would have a little film in front of us and you drive on it. So it's a lot different now. Now you have to go to a private company.
Got it. So did you drive a car when you were a high school student?
Yeah, I drove my father crazy.
Ah.
A stick shift. Do you know what a stick shift is? Not automatic. So he taught me, and he was afraid I was going to make him go through the windshield. But I never did. I never did. He was safe. It was a lot of fun, and I really appreciated him taking me out in the neighborhood to learn how to drive. But that was with a permit. You can only do that with a permit.
Got it.
And you have to take the test.
So did you drive to school when you were a high school student?
No, my parents wouldn't let me. That was a long time ago. I think a lot more kids do now.
Yeah.
To high school. But you got to have a car. A lot of parents we call them beater cars. They're not in very good shape, but they can drive on the road. But if something happens to them, it's not the end of the world. They should be safe enough for the person driving, the high school student, but it wouldn't be the family's best car that they would allow the student to drive to high school.
Right.
As far as the rate of accidents go, they're on the slightly higher side. Boys more than girls, I believe. That age range is certainly higher than the other age ranges. For what it's worth, I think that the number of kids wanting to drive is actually going down. So, for example, when I was a teenager, at the age of 15, you could start taking the classes that were necessary, take the test, and get what's called a learner's permit, which would allow you to drive with one of your parents, for example, parent or guardian. And then when you were 16, you were eligible to go then take the official test and get your official driver's license. And it was very universal that if that was the age you were, that you just did that. There weren't kids that didn't do that. And now I think there's much less of a rush to want to drive a car. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I mean, certainly one reason, but this doesn't really deal with the kids, it deals with the parents. It's gotten very expensive to insure children on a car. So much more so than when I was growing up. So it's caused, I think, some parents to have to decide whether they would rather drive their kids around more or to get them a car, deal with the potential for accidents, and deal with the expense of the insurance. And I think that equation is sort of not as worth it as it used to be. But I do think there also is less of a desire from the kids themselves to want to have a car and be able to drive. The interesting part about that to me is that back when I was a young driver, so I was a teenage driver, even sports cars weren't all that powerful compared to cars of today. So if you understand car culture now, take, for example, a Mustang. A Mustang is about 2.5 times more powerful now than the same Mustang, the sporty Mustang, was back in my day. And so it's interesting to me because that's one of the draws, I think, for kids to cars is the idea of being able to have fun. For many kids, the fun equates to speed, and that's one of the reasons they get in trouble. So it's interesting that as cars have gotten much more powerful, the draw to drive those cars is actually declining. I don't know why that is. It is possible that with more cars on the road, it's more intimidating, which I would understand. I mean, for me, I know there are more cars on the road, but I've had the 30 plus years to acclimate to that. So I was never thrown into a driving situation like we have now, where it really is as congested as it is. So
I see.
I'm not a big car person, but I do know there are certain regulations that the car has to pass. If they wanted to put a plastic dinosaur on top of the car, they could do that.
I heard in California
They
they have a
Higher
regulation on
standards.
emission standard.
Yes, much higher standards than the rest of the country. That's right. And
that's not true. There are actually quite a bit of regulations. I'll try to briefly cover it, but there are a couple different areas. One is there are heavy regulations on importation of cars from other countries. They've really been cracking down on the impounding and crushing of cars that have been illegally imported into the United States. There is some enforcement on things like changing your car in a way that moves outside of the motor vehicle rules. So, for example, window tinting. You can only tint your windows to a certain degree, and some windows you're not allowed to tint at all. People still do it, but that certainly is something that you can receive a citation for. The same thing with some other popular tunery kind of things. There's performance tuning that can be illegal. Having certain lights on your vehicle is illegal. There are cars that have hydraulic kits that allow them to raise and lower off the ground and do sort of funny things with their movement. The use of the hydraulics on the road is illegal. Unless you're doing something ridiculously obvious and probably stupid, please choose to enforce those things if they see you maybe doing something else and they want to cite you. So, for example, let's say you are speeding and they don't want to give you a speeding ticket, but they don't want to let you off either. Maybe you might get a ticket that says your windows are tinted too much. That would give them a legitimate ticket to sort of get some money, and that's not going to hurt your insurance like a speeding infraction would. It's all up to who decides to enforce it, but certainly the laws are on the books as far as modifying your car goes. There's certainly a lot of areas that you have limitations or simply can't go.
Got it.
시청해주셔서 감사합니다. 영상이 조금이나마 도움이 되셨다면 좋아요와 구독 부탁드릴게요. 항상 행복하세요. 바이.